Rudy Garza is with us, the head of CPS Energy. Thank you for making time for us for this interview. As you know, there's been a lot of discussion about what happened a year ago with the power failures, the loss of water, how it affected so many San Antonians. What has CPS Energy learned from that experience?
Well, Steve, thank you for being here today, and thank you for the invitation to join you all with KSAT. We learned a lot. I mean, we've had so many community, committees, quite frankly, the city's Committee on Emergency Preparedness, Municipal Utilities Committee, our own board, and customers who've all provided feedback of some type. And what we know is there are things that, that we don't control that, had implications for, the February storm that the state has dove into, and we've been parts of those conversations. And then we've gotten a lot of feedback from the community. What we know is that we needed to do more, weatherization of our power generation, infrastructure. We needed to do more. We needed to look at our load shed program differently. We never contemplated an event of that scale. So we've gone back in and really reprogrammed that to make sure we can we can meet that type of catastrophic event. And communication. We know that while we worked hard to try to put the information out last storm that we could, we know that customers want information differently. And more than anything, I think today you will see the city saw CPS Energy, the county, all emergency responders really coming together to speak with one voice to make sure that the information getting out to the community is consistent and usable.
We don't know what the future holds just as far as weather events. We can all talk about things that are out of our control, but as far as the things that are in your control, is there a firm protocol that CPS Energy has established now in the event that we do get another, we had a few freezes these last few weeks,
sure,
but if we have something similar to what we had last year?
A couple of ways, yes. There's absolutely a firm protocol. We are standing up what we call our incident response team almost immediately when the threat of weather, is imminent. And, forecasts change and we recognize that, we have to be flexible. But internally, I will tell you that the sense of urgency in making sure that we're paying attention to the things that will help us do the best job we can do for our community is what's really important. So even outside of the work we do coming together, with the city to start planning for a potential event, we're making the call to stand up, those teams that will help us be, the best we can be earlier. And so, we just stood down our incident response team this morning. As a result, we stood it up, probably Tuesday of last week. And so, so that allows our internal resources to really come together to be ready to respond.
Could you be more specific with that? So what does that mean? So I assume you guys also watch the news and you have forecasts.
Sure.
And you know what's going to happen,
right,
weather-wise. So as soon as you have that forecast, do you activate something?
Well, it depends on what the forecast tells us. In this case, the forecast was telling us it's going to get really cold, so we knew it was going to be in the 20s. What we were less certain about was the precipitation that was going to come with it. And so once we recognized that precipitation was dipping down a little further south, it changes our need to respond. The cold isn't so bad. The cold we feel like we're in a pretty good position to manage. When you layer on the cold with the precipitation, that's where you get the freezing rain. That's where you get ice on our lines. That's where trees get heavy and start to make contact. And so, the need for us to pay attention, it becomes a little bit more real when we've got an ice event. You've heard the governor say it was one of the more significant ice events that we've seen in the last few years. So that really kind of perks our need to be paying attention to the forecast a little bit differently to ensure that our crews are ready to respond. And by and large, our crews were ready to go this past event.
I think there's no doubt that ERCOT obviously deserved the scrutiny and the criticism that they got a year ago. CPS Energy has also received scrutiny and criticism from what happened a year ago. Is that deserved?
Yeah, I think some of it is, absolutely. I think that, look, our employees, we're here to serve our customers. And so I think that from my standpoint, it's an issue of intent. Did we intentionally, fail our community? Of course not. There's nobody that takes it harder when our customers have a bad experience than me and my leadership team and my managers, who all came up through the organization, have been here for 20, 30 years, that have been committed to serving this community. We're public servants at the end of the day, just like other governmental entities around town. And so we always, whether we get criticism or not, from the community, we will always look at our response and determine what we can do better. And we'll do that after every single event.
It didn't seem, though, that was communicated. Am I correct in that? Like, it didn't seem like in the moment when people were without power and then without water, that there was a communication from CPS Energy to the customers.
Well, what the customers wanted to know is when is it going to be over? And that's the one thing we couldn't tell them. Again, I think we've got different insight these days into what's going on, across the rest of the state. Even going into an event, I knew that we had 83,000 megawatts of power available, and we knew that the peak was probably going to be somewhere around 71,000 megawatts. It was actually closer to 69. So even the response from the other generators across the state, we have more insight into that now. We didn't have that last February. We didn't know how long the freeze was going to, it snowed and then it snowed again and just compounded the event last go around. And so, we have to figure out how to explain to customers what we know, and reinforce that message. And I think doing that with the city, we all kind of got behind, the 8 ball last go round in our response. And I think, our collective, cooperation, I think really has showed out these last couple of events where, we've made a lot of really positive changes.
Well, I've noticed the changes in just as a customer in the emails that have gone out. Like,
right.
We're expecting this to happen.
Sure.
X could happen, would lead to Y, which would lead to Z. I mean, seems to be one of the major changes just in communications that you guys have made. Am I wrong on that?
No, you're absolutely right. We have made a huge change in overall approach to communication. And here's what we've done. Since February, we've been on a campaign to get our customers to actually go into our system and update their information. Now, you'll get a box on your Manage My Account system that says, which number do you want to designate as your emergency contact? And that's the number that we're going to utilize, to let customers know that there's something going on that they need to be paying attention to. So now, and we weren't doing that last go round. We had the capability to do a robocall. But it took hours for us to get through the 600,000 or so customers that we could send a robocall to. Now we push a button and a message goes out that it's either email, a text, or we can still do the robocalls. But we're able to get out to over 700,000 customers now. We also we have what we call a stakeholder engagement distribution list. And that stakeholder engagement distribution list really is our elected officials and those who have their own networks that can broadcast widely across the community the same information that we're sending directly to customers. So those two approaches to communication are a direct result of the feedback we got from the storm.
Okay, so you mentioned communication as far as emails and texts. What about all your customers who don't have, your older customers who
Right.
don't have access to those?
So we're utilizing we're utilizing the city and county's ability to get to those most vulnerable. We actually have,
What does that mean?
well, those most vulnerable meaning there are services provided by the community that have folks that they will reach out to the community that they serve. So we partner with close to 200 agencies across the city, to try to broadcast our message broadly. But I will tell you, where we do have some work to do has to do with those customers that are on critical care equipment. We've only got about 3,000 customers who actually have told us they've got an oxygen machine or a dialysis machine or some life-sustaining equipment in their homes. Customers have to tell us that they've got that type of situation, and we'll actually do specific outreach. So I've got a team that when we have an event or we have outages that affect those type of customers, they will call that customer directly and they'll say, hey, are you doing okay? We think you're going to be out for a couple hours. Can you manage, through it, or do we need to send via or somebody, one of our partners on the mobility side, to come by and take you to the hospital or a family member's location? We've actually got that capability, but customers have to tell us that that they have equipment of some kind that we need to be paying attention
So
to.
can you guarantee to those 3,000, you mentioned 3,000 customers
Yeah.
who let you know that they are on dialysis or some sort of
Well,
essential equipment?
yeah,
that CPS will be there for them in the event?
absolutely. Our protocol is if we suspect that those customers are going to be out an extended period of time, for us that's over 4 hours, we will call them in the middle of the event asking them if there's something we can do to get them to a safe place.
Where are we with the lawsuits? I know that CPS Energy sued some of the energy providers because for the perceived price gouging.
Right.
Obviously, it seems like price gouging to the average
Yeah,
San
sure.
Antonian. Where are we? I know some settlements have been made. Are you anticipating that there will be a settlement?
Well, we're settling some of those cases on a daily basis, Steve. We filed 18 lawsuits, give or take, with suppliers all over the state of Texas. We're still in litigation with ERCOT because we believe ERCOT made some fundamental mistakes that, kind of artificially held the price in the market up, longer than it should have. And nobody else is making that fight for the customers. We're making that fight for our customers, but the implications of our lawsuits will affect customers across the entire, state of Texas. I mean, our lawsuits will dictate policy if we're successful in the future. There are probably 2 or 3 lawsuits that will likely need to be litigated to the fullest extent. Those are the lawsuits with the highest kind of at-risk dollars that for our counterparties, and so we anticipate having to actually go to court and litigate those particular lawsuits. But there are a lot of lawsuits where suppliers actually showed some restraint, where suppliers want to work through these issues, and we've been able to either settle for what we consider reasonable, even in scarcity pricing, in a market where there's scarcity pricing because there's an event. There's some limit. There should be some limit to what price we have to bear in the market. And again, our obligation is to serve our customers. So it wasn't a situation where you buy or you don't buy. If you don't buy, the gas system goes out and lights go out. And so you're having to make that call with a gun to your head. So I look at it this way. It's kind of a risk reward. We're going to spend a significant amount of money litigating these cases, but we've also gotten significant value either in the settlements that we've reached for reasonable amounts of dollars, or for services that we're going to have to buy anyway in the future. We'll be able to come up to what we call a commercial agreement and get something in return for that value of what the lawsuit was for. So our customers have already come out ahead at the end of the day for what we spent on the lawsuit versus what we've either settled for or agreed to for commercial terms. We believe we're talking about tens of millions of dollars that we've been able to extract from those settlements that is to the benefit of our customers. So I know there's some frustration about, hey, you're not being specific about what you've done in each case. Well, there's a reason for that. Those counterparties may or may not give the same deal to another customer that they give to us. So we've got to rely on our internal, external legal team. Obviously we have been keeping our board, the city council, the city attorney, Andy Segovia, have been up to speed. And so we're all looking at these, trying to make the best decision we can for our customers. But at the end of the day, the fight is worth fighting.
Now you mentioned that some of these lawsuits are still pending. So what if something happens and CPS winds up in a deficit? Will that be passed on to customers?
Well, we've had that conversation right after the rate case, and I know there's been some confusion about that. We're not going to dismiss any of the lawsuits. The lawsuits are either going to be settled or they're going to be litigated, and the courts will ultimately decide. When we set up that regulatory asset, we set it up for up to $1 billion, although we anticipate that number will be something less than that, obviously. For each year, we'll add up the additional settlements that we've made, and will go to City Council when we issue long-term debt to cover that expense. So again, what City Council has approved is the $418 million of what we have settled and or come to commercial terms with our counterparties. But there will be more in the future years as additional cases are settled that we'll have to go back to the City Council and work through. But again, we don't just add that to the bill. We've actually got to do that in a transparent manner to make sure our customers understand what we're doing and why.
You have interim in front of your name right now. Do you want the permanent gig?
Steve, that is the $1 million question. What I want is for our board to run, a process. They've asked that question. I think they're, putting their ideas together on what the community wants in a new CEO. Certainly, it's a conversation that I'm having with the board, every day. But I have told them I'm going to be focused on, making sure that we stabilize the organization in the short term, and I'm going to let the board, run their process.
Because it's a much different job than it was
Absolutely.
2 years ago.
Absolutely.
I mean, our Fairfax Poll has shown
Sure.
you went from 77% approval to 44, I believe it
Sure.
was in the last one. Rightly or wrongly, there's a perception out there that has changed with CPS Energy.
Well,
how do you
go ahead.
get back?
Well, here's the funny thing. It's still the same people that are leading this organization. It's still the same folks out in the field that are serving our customers every day. We're the same company. There are things that we can learn from February and even these last two events that will make us better in the future. But we're the same company. We're the same company committed to our customers. We're the same company committed to being, the community-owned asset that, provides, a third of the city's budget. These are really, what we do is really important for San Antonio. We're a differentiator for our community as you compare, our ability to, to grow economically to other communities. By and large, it's because of CPS Energy. So what I would tell the community is give us a chance, to earn that trust back. But we're the same. We're all the same people. I mean, yeah, we've lost some leaders along the way, but fundamentally, the leaders that are here are absolutely committed to doing the best job we can do for San Antonio.
When people relive the events of last year, one of the things they say is, okay, yeah, it's one thing not having any power, but no water. So what has CPS done to work better with SAWS so
Right.
that people don't lose their water next time?
Well, that was probably one of the biggest gaps in our response last February is really on both of our parts, both CPS Energy and SAWS, identifying each other's critical infrastructure, within our own systems to make sure that we're providing service to critical infrastructure for the community.
Why wasn't that done before?
I think because my perception is nobody expected to ever have an event like that. I mean, and if Robert would be sitting here, he'd tell you they're used to CPS Energy being, so reliable that they've never had to worry about that before. But there are some very, very critical large pump stations that keep the entire water system going, and we've got all those identified on our system now. Those are on critical circuits, and unless something catastrophic happens, we lose the grid overall or something, we're going to protect those. And even with the work that we've done on our load shed, if we do end up taking some of the pump stations down, they've got infrastructure everywhere. There's no way we can protect it all. They can manage through a 15-minute off and some amount of time on event. What they can't manage through is being out for multiple days. So we were actually working with SAWS on a resiliency project where they're going to be making some investments in backup generation at those pump stations that they just can't lose. And we're going to work with them to make sure they get good fuel prices, that we get gas infrastructure to those sites, that we help them buy and sell that power in the market when there's a financial opportunity for the community. So we're going to be good partners when it comes to those resiliency projects. And there are others. The airport, is working on some resiliency, projects. Some of our smaller what we call our suburban cities are all working on resiliency projects. So those are the type of partnerships that I think will move the entire community forward in the future.
I'm going to give you the last word here. We're going to wrap this up. Anything you want to make sure people that are watching this know about Rudy Garza or CPS Energy?
Well, for me, it's, I've been using this concept of one team, both internally and externally. Every one of our, I think I saw last night, we have 2,904 employees today, which is almost 500 employees short of where we need to be. 400 employees short of where we need to be. We're all necessary to do the job that we need to do for the community. But guess what? The community is part of that team too. Whether we're successful or not successful, our city council plays a role in that. Their ability to partner with us in the right ways, them being supportive in our dialogue in the community. Me and Eric Walsh, our city manager, we meet every other week, and we've developed a really, really good relationship. He's part of the team. Ben Gorzel's part of the team. Our board is part of what it takes to be successful. Our customers, at the end of the day, we've got 1.2 million customers that can tell us when that tree in their backyard needs to be trimmed, or when there's a problem out in our system. So in San Antonio, I want our customers to recognize we're all part of the same team. That's one team that it's going to take to ensure that CPS Energy is the best that we can be.